So getting into this video, I wanted to talk about a theory. This isn't my opinion, this is more just discussing about different theories that I've seen online and just discussing them and fleshing them out and seeing what may or may not happen and seeing what other people's opinions are, and that is the idea of Belle dying. Now the thing is with Belle dying, there are actually a couple of ways that that could end. And it's kind of that whole meme joke where just because you die doesn't mean you're dead kind of thing. And I'll get into that in a minute. But again, this is just simply a theories video on possibilities of where the story could go at the end, and kind of seeing what happens at the end and looking back at them and saying which one was right, which one was wrong, and having a fun laugh at the ones that were completely off the mark. The thing is I do think it is kind of a reasonably idea that Belle could die at the end, but not in the way that I think some fans are thinking, in the sense of Belle just doing a heroic ending where he gives his life to protect those around him that he finds dear, and then that's the end of it. He just dies. Eyes ends up having to move on because clearly the story's been building up the romance between them, and then that's the end of it. Maybe there's like some last farewell that Eyes does, that kind of thing. I don't think that's ever going to happen personally, but I do think the idea of Belle dying is a possibility, in the sense of Belle giving his life to protect everyone, and then the gods and the goddesses maybe bending the rules a little bit and bringing him back, or allowing him to be brought back as a reward to him for the heroism and the entertainment that he is given. Some will see it as pure heroism and they will say, okay, fine, we will allow this. I mean, I can definitely see some being okay with it, and then some just doing it because they're like, hey, this was entertaining, you know what, giving the happy ever after, and it's like an exception to the rule. Now, of course, there is this kind of whole system, that the afterlife and the whole soul system, but I do feel like there is some probably exceptions to the rule where the writer can write that in. Whether this happens or not, this is the only way I can see Belle's death happening, if it was to happen, because I just don't believe the writer will just kill Belle off and then that would be the end of it, because I always believe that Belle will get his happy ever after in the end. However exactly that turns out is more the minor detail, whether it's a harem ending that some fans have been wanting, or if it's a him Riv Eyes and that's it. Again, fans have been arguing about that. That's not what the point of this video is. It's more about the death itself. Would that be a possibility? I think it's a possibility, but I don't think it would turn out exactly as like Belle dies and that's purely it, that's the end. How he would give his life, though, I think it would be a massive sacrifice. He'd be in the final battle, it'd be seen sort of like the last give or take moment where he needs to do something and he risks his life, and it ends up leading to his death, and that's what helps the rest being able to defeat the final bad guy or villain at the end, not to kind of hint what that possibly could be. And then everyone kind of does their farewells, and to him, he would do that to protect his friends and family, and by family I mean in his familiar members, because to him they are pretty close to him, and I kind of see it as like they are kind of like family to him. Then his soul would then be taken elsewhere, and then maybe the gods and the goddesses would flex the rules a little bit and allow some leeway, because of one, some would see it as entertainment, as I mentioned, and others would see it as the ultimate heroism that he gave, and maybe give that. But even then, I think that's a very low chance of happening as well. I think some would probably see it as, no, what's done is done, that deed needs to feel fulfilled. It would feel cheapened if he gave his life and then it was just brought back just for the sake of it. There are many series out there that do that, where they give this epic sort of final sacrifice for everyone and then they just get brought back, and it feels a little bit too convenient kind of situation. But again, DanMachi is kind of one of those defy the situation. Another way that Belle could do it is that he doesn't die, but it seems like he dies. Like he kind of gives a sacrifice, everyone thinks he's died, but he defies death itself because of his pure heroism, his determination, and the fact that he is the hero of the story, and then defies that and then gets through it. So he doesn't actually die, but it's like a everyone thinks he's died kind of situation. I think that's more likely than him actually dying and being brought back. But then some people could say, well, what about with the Xenos and the bringing back of Wing kind of situation? I think that's, yeah, I could see some people pulling that up and being like, okay, well, that happened, why not with Belle? that is a fair point. I don't really have a counterpoint to that. It's more just a gut feeling in itself. I feel like it would be more like people will think he's died, but then he defies it, and then he kind of shows the world, shows the gods and the goddesses that he will do anything and everything necessary to save everyone and anything, especially when I say anything is the sense of how the people see the Xenos. They aren't like part of the normal group, but I feel like they will all come together to work together for a common cause. And I think that's one of the big things about the final sort of end goal, or the final battle, is I think it's going to be kind of like that sort of big come together, or the Avengers kind of thing. I know some people don't know what that means, is for those that haven't watched like the Marvel movies, for the sort of big phase where all the big heroes came together to defeat the final big bad villain being Thanos. I kind of use as an example of like the Avengers moment, where everyone comes together no matter their differences. The Xenos, Isa's friends, all of the past people that Bell has helped or had conflicts with, all of them come together to just finally defeat the final big quest itself, and that will be, I think, a really epic situation as well. But how that exact fight plays out, it could just be a really epic fight where it comes close to the nail. I do feel like, though, actual deaths aren't really something that's going to happen, because the writer's always been very shy to put deaths into the story. And yes, you can refer to Isa's side stories, Sword Princess light novels, where there has been some deaths, but those deaths, not to be mean to those characters, those characters were basically just side characters. They weren't really meaningful or impactful characters. I feel like they were just kind of like throwaway characters, kind of there to be easily throw away when situations get really bad. They'll be the ones that die off to kind of add a little bit of gravity to the situation, but you're never going to see like a major character die. It's not like, and even then, you could go, oh, well, maybe it could be like a Game of Thrones where major characters die to kind of throw people in a headspin, but even then, Game of Thrones never really killed off major characters. It was just, you thought they were major characters, but they weren't major characters, because there were those specific characters that always lasted and that you knew was safe, kind of like the Tyrion situation. So I don't think there's going to be any major deaths on that scale where Bell actually does die and he stays dead. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that's the least likely. I think him dying and then being brought back, or being allowed to be brought back by the gods and the goddesses, is more likely than him actually permanently dying. But I also think him being perceived as dead but not actually dying and defying the odds is more likely than that again. I think that's the most likely, because I think they'll want to kind of really show the stakes. But I do think there could be some deaths just for minor characters that aren't as beloved in the series, especially the cast of girls that are in love with Belle. I don't think those will be the ones that will give their lives. So I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. How do you think the story could turn out at the end, like the big final fight kind of situation with the final quest? How do you think that could turn out? I definitely think it will be a big epic fight where a lot of people will come together to work as a team to defeat the final monster itself. So again, love to know your thoughts, but if you like this video, hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you beautiful nerds in the next video.